स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। नमः श्रीयतिराजाय विवेकानन्दसूरये सच्चित्सुखस्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे। So as you all know, we will be continuing the fascinating accounts of the first few meetings of Swami Vivekananda, then Narendranath Datta, with his master Sri Ramakrishna. We've already seen that the master first met Narendranath at Surendranath Mitra's house and also heard his beautiful singing and was immediately attracted to him. And we read the wonderful vision of Sri Ramakrishna, his mind soaring high above the world, going to a very, very subtle and spiritual atmosphere, then seeing the rishis in meditation and requesting one of the rishis to come down on earth with him. And he said that as soon as he saw Narendranath, he recognized him to be one of the rishis. And we also discussed the first arrival of the first time Swami Vivekananda came to Dakshineshwar at Sri Ramakrishna's invitation. Then we saw what happened. The master took him outside and told him that he was a divine being come to earth for the sake of removing the sufferings of humanity. And we saw that Narendranath, who considered himself the son of the lawyer Vishwanath Datta and nothing else, he was dumbfounded by this conduct and he thought, what kind of a man is this? So we had left Narendranath last time thinking of one to whom he would surrender completely in a few years, who would be the treasure of his heart, who he would revere and worship as an incarnation of God as long as he lived. That Sri Ramakrishna, we have seen that Narendranath thought at that time to be crazy. Yeah. So Swamiji said, what kind of a man is this? He must be raving mad. I am nobody. I am the son of an ordinary person. And he is telling me all these things, that I have come to the earth to save humanity and all that. So that is where we had left Narendranath last time. Now, after the master said all this, Narendranath did not interrupt him at all. He let him continue, he let him speak. And afterwards, they returned to the room. The master and Narendranath both returned to the room. Now, Narendra watched the master closely. He had after all, he was the future Swami Vivekananda, you see. He had a very analytical mind, so he could not leave things as they were. He analyzed each behavior, each movement of the master, his total behavior very, very closely. And he said afterwards that I observed nothing abnormal in his words, movements or behavior towards others. On the contrary, Narendranath said that his words and ecstatic states showed him to be a man of true renunciation, who had given up everything for God. So although Naren thought that Sri Ramakrishna was crazy, he also saw that Sri Ramakrishna practiced what he preached. Sri Ramakrishna said on that day, God can be seen and spoken to just as I am seeing you and speaking to you. But who wants to see and speak to God? For wife, children, money, property, people grieve and shed jugs of tears. But who weeps for the vision of God? And yet, if anyone really wants to see God and calls upon Him, God will certainly reveal Himself to that person. This is what Narendranath heard the Master say, and he immediately realized that the Master was not speaking by reading any books or by hearing somebody. He was telling his innermost realization that he himself had the vision of God, then only he could speak with such authority, Narendranath felt. So I will quote Swami Vivekananda. He said afterwards of this meeting, when I heard these words of the Master, I became more and more convinced that he wasn't like any of the other religious teachers I had met, so full of poetry and fine figures of speech. He spoke only of what he himself had actually realized by giving up everything and calling on God wholeheartedly. As I tried to reconcile his words with his strange behavior towards me, I concluded that he must be a monomaniac. Yet I could not help acknowledging the magnitude of his renunciation. I thought, well, he may be mad, but this is indeed a rare soul who can undertake such renunciation. Yes, he is mad, but how pure and what renunciation! He is truly worthy of reverence, love, and adoration of humankind. Thinking thus, I bowed down at his feet, took leave of him, and returned to Calcutta that day. This is what Narendranath said. So you see, here we see Narendranath full of a little conflicting emotions. On one hand, his analytical mind told him that the Master was a genuine person, and even in that meeting, Narendra realized that he possessed genuine renunciation and that he spoke only what he realized. But on the other hand, Narendranath could not at all understand why the Master had told him what he thought to be such irrational things. So actually, when Narendranath left, he still could not form a clear opinion about the Master. You see, that was natural because the Master was unlike anybody he had ever met, you see. He had never met an incarnation of God previously. So it is but natural that even a great soul like Narendranath with such a keen intellect, he also was totally confused. Now we will come to the next meeting, but before that I want you to show some pictures because many of you have not visited Belur Mutt. So by the pictures of Sri Ramakrishna's room you will have an idea of the door from which Narendranath entered and what Sri Ramakrishna's room was like. So just 1 minute. So this you see is an old photograph of Sri Ramakrishna's room, the original flooring and all that, but here no doors are visible. So I will show you another picture. See, see this photo, this is a very old photo. So here you can see the Nahabat, and here you can see one of the doors of Sri Ramakrishna's room. This is the door. So it was from this door that Narendranath entered the room for the first time. And there were two other doors. I will just show you. So this is the old one. See, this is the front door to Sri Ramakrishna's room. Now, after Narendranath had sung the song, the master brought him outside here, and the space between the pillars, it was winter, Narendranath had said, so the space between the pillars at that time was all covered up. So, when the door of the room was closed, with the spacing all covered up, nobody could see Narendranath and the master. At that time, Sri Ramakrishna had told Narendranath that he knew who he was. He was a divine being who had come to the earth for the good of humanity. And this photograph is a room, this is the room as it is now. So they have put all kinds of photographs you can see now. Unfortunately, most unfortunately, they have also changed the floor, the original floor on which Sri Ramakrishna walked. They have replaced it with marble and all that. So this is what the room looks like now. So this is the thing. So I wanted to have an idea. This is the place where Sri Ramakrishna told Narendranath that he was an incarnation of Nara. This is the door from which Narendranath entered the room, and this is an old photograph of Sri Ramakrishna's room. So now, as we know, Sri Ramakrishna had asked Naren to visit him at Dakshineshwar at the earliest opportunity. So after some days, after returning to his home that day, after some days, Narendranath remembered that invitation and again visited Dakshineshwar. So actually this was the first time he was visiting Dakshineshwar. So he was not sure of the way. He thought maybe it was close by. No, but that time he had visited with his friends. Yeah, that time he had when he entered through that door, he had visited with his friends in a carriage or something. So this time actually he walked. So while walking, he said that he forgot the way to Dakshineshwar. And he walked the whole way, and it is a long distance. Those who are familiar with Calcutta and Dakshineshwar, it is a very, very long distance if you go by walking. So Narendranath said that after asking many people on the way, he finally arrived at Dakshineshwar and went straight to the master's room. And he found the master sitting in meditation on the smaller bed that stands beside the bigger one. As we saw in the photograph, there are two beds. So the master was sitting on the smaller bed, deep in meditation, and there was no one with him at that time. So when the master saw Narendranath, he joyfully called him inside and made him sit down on one end of the bed. He was in an ecstatic mood. Now let's see what happened after this. At this meeting, the master tried to give Narendranath the highest spiritual experience known to man. The highest spiritual experience which there can be in the experience where a human being merges with Brahman and realizes his unity with the ultimate reality. That is the highest experience. So this highest experience the master tried to give Narendranath on this occasion itself. Okay, so let's see in the words of Narendranath what happened. The master was in an ecstatic mood, and I quote Narendranath or Swami Vivekananda, he muttered something to himself that I couldn't understand, looked hard at me, and then arose and approached me. I thought we were about to have another crazy scene. Scarcely had that thought passed through my mind when he placed his right foot on my body. Immediately I had a wonderful experience. My eyes were wide open and I saw that everything in the room, including the walls themselves, was rapidly whirling around me and receding. At the same time, it seemed to me that my consciousness of self, together with the entire universe, was about to vanish into a vast, all-devouring void. This destruction of my self-consciousness seemed to me the same thing as death. Terrified, I felt death right before me, very close. Unable to control myself, I cried out loudly, "Ah, what are you doing to me? Don't you know that I have parents at home?" When the master heard this, he gave a loud laugh. Then he touched my chest with his hand and said, "All right, let it stop now. It needn't be done all at once. It will happen in its own good time." To my amazement, the extraordinary vision vanished as suddenly as it had come. I returned to my normal state and saw things inside and outside the room standing as still as before. So that was the experience which Narendranath had. Just at the mere wish of Sri Ramakrishna. The state which ordinary people can have after practicing sadhana through lives and lives and lives, the master tried to give Narendranath at the very second time he came to Dakshineshwar. Because Narendranath was fit to receive it, you see, he was not an ordinary person. But we see that such was the power of Maya that even the great Rishi Narendranath grew afraid of this vision and told the masters to stop. Now we see that Narendranath said, when the master heard him saying that, "What are you doing to me? I have my parents at home," the master gave a loud laugh. This is very significant. Why did the master laugh when Narendranath said this. In explanation, let me quote Swami Vivekananda. In one of his lectures, he said, quote, "A baby likes candies. Suppose you are conducting an investigation in connection with some subject of electricity and the baby asks you, does it buy candy? No, you answer. Then what good are these experiments? The baby will say." This is a very significant thing which Swamiji has said. To a baby, candies are everything. It does not understand anything beyond the candies. So if one is engaged in such a superior thing, if the baby sees that that thing does not give him candies, in the baby's eyes, that venture, even if it be a very noble venture, will be useless. So see, Sri Ramakrishna laughed because when Swamiji said, "I have my parents at home," Sri Ramakrishna laughed because he said, "This is one of the Sapta Rishis. And I am giving the highest spiritual experience which there can be to him." And what is he saying? That I have my parents at home. So what the world, the whole world is nothing but a bubble in the infinite ocean of Brahman. The whole universe is just like a bubble. So imagine the vastness of that experience. And to negate this experience so that he should not have this experience, Narendranath is telling, "I have my parents at home." So it is putting a most trifling thing, giving it so much importance, just like a baby. I can give you another example. Let's see. Suppose the son of a king, suppose he has been out of his sins. Suppose the son of a king, at his birth, he is given to a farmer. Suppose the king tells the farmer, a poor farmer, that you bring up my kid. And the son of the king is raised in poor circumstances in the house of that poor farmer. Okay. Now after the son becomes an adult, the master, suppose the king wants him to come back to him and sends someone to bring his son back to the kingdom so he can become king in place of him. Now suppose when those people try to bring the son back, the son who is a farmer now, suppose he says, "Oh, how can I go to you? How can I go to the palace? Then what will happen to my farming?" Suppose the son says that, will not the king laugh? He will think, "Arey, this fellow doesn't know anything beyond his farm. Look what I am about to give him. And he's telling I won't leave my small farm. If he comes to me, he will gain riches beyond his wildest imagination." So the king will laugh, thinking that this young boy doesn't know better now. He is comparing his small farm to my vast kingdom. So similarly, Sri Ramakrishna also laughed, thinking that, see, this one of the Sapta Rishis, he is refusing this rarest of the rare experience, and thinking that he is an ordinary person who has parents at home. So that is why the master laughed. See the power of Maya. It degrades our vision so much that we cannot imagine anything other than this small world and small enjoyments of ours. This is the thing. Such is our pitiable condition. So the master was greatly inclined to use samadhi to impart the highest knowledge of Brahman to Narendra on that very day. But Narendra refused. So the master laughed and said, okay, let it wait for a future time. And after some years, when Narendranath fully surrendered to the master, then the opposite happened. He began to implore the master for the experience of that Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The same Narendranath who had refused him at one time. So the master used to tease him at that time. He used to say, why are you pestering me for that experience now? Didn't you tell me that you have parents at home and you needed to serve them? So why are you asking me now? Go to your parents. Serve them. That is the thing. And then master jokingly would say, look, once a man died and became a ghost. So he was alone for a long time, so he felt terribly lonely and began to look everywhere for a companion. Companion means another ghost. When he heard that someone had died in a particular place, he would rush there thinking that that person might become a ghost and he might finally have a companion. But when he saw that the dead person's soul had become liberated by the touch of Ganga water or by some other means, he would be disappointed and would return to his own place to lead his lonely existence. So that poor ghost never had a companion. My condition was similar to his. Means the master is telling that his condition was similar to that of the ghost. Through Narendranath, he used to tease like that. So when I met you, the master is telling Narendranath, when I met you, I thought I had finally found a companion. But you cried out that you had parents. So I couldn't have a companion. Thus the master teased Narendranath in this way. But we all know that Narendranath was the master's divine companion, eternal companion, and so much so that the master never thought himself to be separate from Narendra. Such was the love he bore towards him. Now let us return to Dakshineshwar again and see what happened after the experience receded. The master touched Narendranath, again everything became normal. After that, what happened? Let us see. So after that, Narendra said that experience changed his whole way of thinking. He was completely bewildered and kept trying to analyze what had happened actually. This wonderful experience had begun and ended in obedience to the will of this extraordinary man. So Narendra was a very well-read boy, you see, and he had read about mesmerism and hypnotism in books and all. So now he wondered whether the master had practiced hypnotism on him. But his heart refused to believe this. Why? Because hypnotism can be practiced on only those people who have weak minds or they are willing to be hypnotized. But neither had Naren a weak mind nor he was willing to be hypnotized. So how could that be hypnotism? So Narendranath was very much conscious of his own intelligence and willpower. He knew that he could not be overwhelmed like this, like ordinary people. And yet this man had reduced him to that condition, that just by willing he could give that experience to him. He could simply play with Naren's mind as he liked. So Naren thought that when I met this man, I thought him to be mad. Still, how can he have the power to do this to me? So Narendranath could not come to any conclusion. This was a complete mystery to him. So after much reflection, he concluded that this mystery could not be solved. Only thing he thought that next time he would be very careful so that this man could not have this kind of influence on him. Then Naren also thought, I think him to be mad, but how can I consider this person mad when he can destroy the strong structure of my mind at a mere wish? My mind is endowed with tremendous willpower, Naren thought, and at a mere wish he can reshape it as one reshapes a lump of clay. So this was one thing, and that experience on his first visit, when the master told him that he was the Rishi Nara, etc., that Narendra thought to be absolutely ridiculous. So how could he reconcile those two things? Narendra was completely confused. He could not come to any decision about this person. So now from his boyhood, Naren was a genius, you see. So from his boyhood, he had always succeeded in arriving at the truth of any matter through observation, investigation, reasoning, argumentation, etc. But here, for the first time in his life, he found himself to be completely at loss. He could not make out heads or tails of what had happened. But Narendra was not one who would admit defeat so easily. So consequently, a fierce determination arose in his mind to truly understand the nature and power of this wonderful man by any possible means. So this was what he decided when he left the master that day, that he would somehow fathom this great mystery. That how could this man, whom he thought to be mad, how could he exert such a tremendous influence on his mind? Okay. Now let us go to the next meeting when Narendranath visited Dakshineshwar again. Although Narendranath was extremely cautious and very much on his guard that he will not fall under any hypnotic spell of the master this time, though he was very careful, but again the inconceivable happened. What happened now? Let's see. On that day, you see, the master invited Narendra for a walk in Jadu Mallik's garden. Jadu Mallik, you know, he was a devotee of the master, a very rich person. So his garden was close by. So the master took Narendra for a walk in Jadu Mallik's garden, south of the Dakshineshwar compound. So on that day, the master walked with Narendra in that garden on the banks of the Ganga. And as the master and Narendra talked about many things, they eventually came to the parlor where the master sat down and soon went into samadhi. Now Narendra sat near the master, seeing his state, closely watching the master's condition. When the master again suddenly touched him, just as he had done on the previous occasion. So although Narendra was on his guard, he was completely overwhelmed by that powerful touch. This time he became completely unconscious, not partially as before. Last time what had happened, that he saw everything whirling and all, but he was not completely unconscious. He never became completely unconscious of what is happening. But this time he became completely unconscious. And when he regained his normal consciousness after some time, he saw the master passing his hand over his chest and smiling at him sweetly and gently. This was all Naren knew. Naren did not know anything else about what happened because he was completely unconscious. But fortunately for us, the master had told his disciples as to what actually transpired when Narendra became completely unconscious. The other disciples of Sri Ramakrishna did not hear anything from Naren. Maybe they thought that Narendra did not want to tell them what had happened. But Narendra could not tell them because he was completely unconscious. So the master told them. Now, what did the master say? Let us see. I quote from the biography of the master by Swami Sardananda. That day, after Narendra lost consciousness of his current incarnation, I asked him many questions, such as who he really was, where he had come from, why he had come means why he had been born, how long he would stay in this world, and so forth. So he entered his innermost being and found the correct answers to my questions. These answers confirmed what I had already learned about him in visions. It is forbidden to reveal those things, but I can tell you this. On the day Naren knows who he really is, he will no longer remain in this world. With a strong effort of the will, he will immediately give up his body through the power of yoga. Narendra is a great soul, perfect in meditation. This is what the master told his disciples about what Narendra had told him, what had happened. So you see, through the power of Maya, even a great soul like Narendra completely forgot his real nature and remembered only the present incarnation. So everything was in his mind, it was present in his mind that he was a Nara Rishi, everything. But all that was covered through this power. He only remembered that he was the son of Vishwanath Datta. Everything else had gone down to the subconscious plane. So the master, when he touched him, he made Naren dive deep into his mind. Then Naren again remembered who he really was, and then the being who spoke through Narendra's body, that being was not Narendranath Datta. He was that Rishi. That Rishi told the master who he was, why he had come to the earth, for what mission, how long he would live, etc. Everything had been decided beforehand. So the master at that time actually made Narendranath Datta disappear, as it were, and brought the Rishi to talk to him so that he could know, he could confirm what he had known about Narendra in his earlier visions. This is the thing. So our conscious mind is just a drop in the ocean. You see, behind lies the subconscious mind, in which all the impressions of our previous births are stored, about which we have no inkling whatsoever. That is why Swami Vivekananda says in one of his talks, only an infinitely small percentage of our conscious mind is on the sensuous plane. We have just a little bit of sensuous consciousness and imagine that to be our entire mind and life. But as a matter of fact, it is but a drop in the mighty ocean of the subconscious mind. So, in the subconscious mind is stored all our previous incarnations, whatever we have done, etc. All the information is there. But we are not conscious of it now. That's why we think that our present life is everything. That is why we get immersed in this world, we become attached in this world, we think that this and this person is our husband, wife, friend, relative, etc. We forget that we have had thousands or maybe millions of friends, relatives, husbands, wife, wealth, etc. Whatever we imagine, we have had this millions of times. So when that remembrance comes, Swamiji says in another place, then only a man gains true renunciation. He finds that nothing remains in the world. Everything has come before, it has gone. This life has also come, this will also go. We will soon have to go, leaving all these things which we hold so dear, which we are holding with our life. Our money and our name, etc., etc. We are clinging to that so firmly that we have forgotten our real nature, forgotten God. So, this is what happened at that meeting. Master only confirmed what he had known about Narendranath in all the visions before. So, from all this, it is evident that Narendranath, the future Swami Vivekananda, had come on a divine mission. That is why, and the Master himself had brought him, so that is why the Master felt with Narendranath such a strong kinship. That is the thing. Actually, the Master was eternally identified with God, the source of this universe. And he was convinced that it was the will of God that his body and mind, the body of Ramakrishna, would be the instruments by which the decline of religion would be halted to some extent in this age. And he brought Naren to help him in this mission to benefit humanity. So it is not surprising that the master considered Naren to be his very, very own, and that he was so much attracted to him. So the master's life, this is the reason that the master's life was more connected with Narendra's life than with any other devotee. So Sardanand in his biography of the master, he quotes Jesus Christ, that when Jesus met one of his main disciples, Peter, he said, "Upon this immovable rock I shall build my church." Immovable rock, which is strong, firm and steady. If you build a house on sand, it cannot stand. It will crumble. So if you want to build something which will last for a long time, you have to build it on a very strong foundation. So Jesus thought that Peter would be this foundation. Similarly, the master also thought that the church which he was about to build, the great movement which he was about to start, should have the firmest of foundation. That foundation was Narendranath Datta, the future Swami Vivekananda, because only he had that power in him, he had that strength in him to uphold the great structure which the master wants to build in future. This is the thing. So, by the will of providence, such a feeling also arose in the master's mind when he met Narendra. The master had a vision that Narendra was his child, his friend, his companion, who was to carry out his mission, and that their lives were bound eternally with the unbreakable cord of a very exalted spiritual love. That love cannot be understood by ordinary people of the world. It is something beyond this world. So the stage had been set, everything was arranged. Before the Rishi came down to earth, he knew exactly what he would do, how long would he live, the effect it would have on the world, etc., etc. And all those things the Rishi within Narendranath told the master on that occasion. So that everything had been arranged from before, we also see from the following words of Narendra later. This quotation Narendra had told one of his brother disciples. So this is Narendranath Datta speaking, mind you, not the Rishi. So Narendranath Datta also sometimes felt that as if he had met all the persons whom he was meeting in this life, that he had visited all the places which he was visiting in this life before itself. Because although Narendra was the Rishi, although he was overpowered by Maya to some extent, but we should not forget that after all he was that great Rishi. So Maya could only affect him to a certain extent. So Narendra said afterwards to one of his brother disciples, I quote, "From my very childhood, whenever I came in contact with a particular object, person or place, it would sometimes seem as if I were already acquainted with it. I tried to recall when, but couldn't bring it to mind. Nonetheless, I was not convinced that I had never seen it before. This happened quite often. Perhaps I would be discussing various topics with my friends at a particular place. Someone would say something, and immediately the thought would flash in my mind that sometimes past in this very house I have had the same discussion with these friends, and on that occasion this person had said the same thing. After long deliberation, I couldn't understand when I had such a discussion with them. So when I became aware of the doctrine of reincarnation, I thought that perhaps I might have been familiar with those places and people in a previous life, and that partial memories concerning them sometimes surfaced in my mind. So Narendranath thought that this was happening, that he had already met all these persons previously. So what may have happened is that Rishi, before coming down, he had seen everything, every single detail of what his life on earth as Narendranath Datta would be like. So when he came down as Narendranath Datta, sometimes those memories which the Rishi had seen, so at that time the Rishi inside Naren would, as it were, peep out. Because those things Narendra had seen as a Rishi. So those experiences he would sometimes recall. That he had seen and heard everything what he was seeing and hearing now. So this is all we can understand. These are very, very deep mysteries. So from all these accounts, now it is obvious that the Master had brought Narendranath Datta here to fulfill a divine mission, and Narendra was so close to him, the Master being God himself and Narendranath being on such a high level. So the Master, as we feel a close kinship which people who have a lot in common with us. Suppose a scholar is there and he goes to a meeting which is full of scholars, and there are other persons around also. Suppose they are having a party sort of thing and people are serving the guests. So naturally that scholar will feel a kinship with other scholars because they are so near to him, either in intellectual attainments or thinking, etc. Naturally he would not feel such a strong kinship with the ordinary persons. Similarly, the Master and Narendranath, they belong to such a very high level, such a very divine level. That is why they both felt such a tremendous attraction for each other. That is why the Master never thought himself to be separate from Naren. That was the love which he bore towards him. So once when Narendra was in Dakshineshwar, after he had accepted the Divine Mother, he spent the whole night at Dakshineshwar then. So he got up early in the morning, or maybe, he had sang songs to the Divine Mother throughout the night. Then in the morning he slept. Then he woke up at 4 p.m. and then he came and sat near the master, asked his permission to leave for his home. So the master then went into ecstasy and sat down beside Narendra. And what did he say? The master said, "What I see is that I am this body," meaning his own body, and that body means Narendra's body also. I see no difference. Master said, I am this body as well as that body. That body means what? Narendra's body. He said he feels no difference. He is seeing one. This was the extent to which the master identified himself with this divine companion of his, whom he had brought to the world for our sake, so that we also may awaken. We may awaken from this dream we are dreaming that we are so and so, this and that. We have been born, we will die, we have this friend, we have that friend, we have so much money, etc., etc. This stupid dream which we are dreaming, so that we can be free from that, so that we can become free from ignorance and we can realize our divine nature and be free forever and ever afterwards. For this reason, the master had roused the Nara Rishi from his meditation and brought him down with him on this earth. This is the thing. So, I think we can end here now. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.